Hello, welcome back to Falcon Blues TV, you filthy animals. So today we are doing a Merseyside derby preview, and it's not just with anyone, it's with an actual Time Lord, Liverpool's own actor Paul Mcgann. Now, before we get into that, we do in the link below, as you can see, there will be in the link in the description. Myself and some of the members of the team are going to be doing the sleep out at Everton's new ground on October the 10th. Now, many of you might remember we've done this previously at Goodison Park, and we raised quite a lot of money for Everton in the community and people who are homeless. Now, this time it's at Everton's new ground, and it's going to be a lot colder because it's right on the docks. So anything that you can spare change, as much or as little as you can donate, or if you can't donate, share it to someone that you might think that can help. But yeah, it's going to be a cold one on October the 10th, so if you can help out, please do so. Now, I am very privileged and happy to be joined by the great Paul Mcgann, star of Whitnell and I, Alien 3, Empire of the Sun, Luther, Doctor Who, actual Time Lord. And before we get to Paul, we do have to say a big thank you to Ralph Brown, because this interview wouldn't be happening without Ralph, and really appreciate that. But Paul, thanks for coming on, mate.
Well, what a pleasure. And what a pleasure to follow Ralph as well. I was just thinking that when you were saying that, if you could get Richard E. Grant, imagine like you do like the hat trick. And now I'm thinking, what? I don't know. I've never had a conversation about football, and I don't even know what team he would. You know, he came Swaziland through Cape Town, maybe Brentford. I bet he's a Chelsea fan, actually.
Chelsea or Fulham, I think. Chelsea or Fulham.
I dare to ask him one of these days to be on it, just to get the hat trick.
Yeah, that would be a dream for me. The only other one I'd want is the busy at the end. Get in the back of the van. I'd want him as well. But we do have to start with now, some of the viewers might be a little disappointed here now, Paul, because you support our red neighbours who were playing on Saturday. You support Liverpool. I'm only joking. But why do you support Liverpool, Paul? And I have to ask, do your brothers all support Liverpool, or is there any blue ones as well?
There's no, the siblings they're all Reds, my sister included, because of me dad. Because of me dad, and hang on, my headphones falling out. My dad and his brother Jimmy, who in their turn, they came from a house that was blue back in the 30s and 40s, so everyone's got like stories. As you know, anyone that's not from Liverpool may or may not know, but there's no rhyme or reason. Families can be split down the middle, red and blue. And I think, anyway, the long and the short of it is the family story goes that Jimmy, my Uncle Jim, sometime when he was a kid, was taken to Jack Sharp's for his birthday. And when it used to, the shop used to, and you'd go in and back in the day and you'd have like all the red kits down one end, the blue kits down the other end. And they went in to get him an Everton kit because the family was blue. But he cried and wailed until he got him a red one. So that's why we're Reds. And that's probably half true, but it's about as good a reason to be a red or a blue as we've all got, really. It's family.
Yeah.
It's just family in the end.
My eldest brother, he's a Liverpool fan, but my middle brother's an Evertonian, and I'm an Evertonian. My dad was an Evertonian. So I remember being a kid, I went, Dad, why does John support Liverpool? And he used to always say, well, you just dropped him on his head as a baby. That's the excuse my dad would give. But
it's funny because my older brother, Joe, I remember when we were kids and we were first going to games, he was almost the blue. Now I'm not doing him a disservice here. He was flirting with it. And was going to Goodison and took me to Goodison.
Wow.
I think the first big game, because we used to go to the Central League games. For context, we're mid-60s in age, so we're going back here. We're going back to the late 60s, early 70s, those games. That's when we would first have gone. And back then, the Central League, of course, was the reserve teams were more or less it was half of the first team. It was the first team that wasn't getting trying to come back from injury and everything. So the Central League games were decent. So probably so we'd go to those as little kids, and then you kind of graduate to the big game. And I think I'm pretty sure that the first big game that I watched was at Goodison with Joe.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember that. I think it was Coventry City.
Coventry City.
Yeah, and it would have been 69 to 70. It would have been the year Everton won the league.
Yeah. So that
and
was
where we
like,
grew up, and thinking back, I can see why Joe was kind of taken by them. They were brilliant, and also where we lived, the streets we lived in Kenny, where we grew up, the kids out the back mostly were blues. These were friends. You go to school after your class would be red, off would be blue. So the first, I remember that. I can remember the sensation of it, the feeling of it, the slightly scary feeling of it. Joe was big, and I was always quite little, and I'd sort of hide behind him. I remember him even getting beaten up over there. Now I'm talking about the boot boy days and the skinhead days. So so I can remember I can remember the excitement of it. I think the first derby we would have seen would have been a Central League derby.
right. Okay.
Probably. And I can remember the first big derby I saw was just one of them, seemed to be back then like a series of narky 0-0s. It would have been, what I mean? So you're talking maybe 71, 72, 73, so whatever. And then would that have been
That's a bit of a lull in the
still Patrick,
70s.
maybe? Still Patrick or Gordon Lee, just before Gordon Lee. Shankly was still the manager. So, so that we're talking back then. So, and once you go, of course, as a kid, once you go and once you experience that, and of course, it wasn't all seated then. It was, you took your chances and you physically, and they were crowded, and it was exciting, So once you go, you're hooked.
Yeah.
So,
I know the exact feeling. But I wish I had good memories like that. My first Merseyside derbies ever lost all first 4 at home at Goodison. They lost all 4 in a row. Where my eldest brother was like, "Wow, you need to start coming to the field." Well. So we're talking 99, 2000, 2001, 2002. Yeah. But if you remember the Gary McAllister one, that was probably the first one I went to, and he scored in the last minute. And I was like,
that midweek game. Were you at that game?
Yeah.
I can remember being in a flat in London. Oh no, I was listening in a car. I was sat in a car, listening to it on what it would have been like Radio 5 Live or something, and thinking, blimey, So, but that was an outlier even then. I think to have that kind of excitement, so to have a bunch of goals in games still. They were.
Yeah. Neutral, and it is also the fixture that's got the most red cards in the Premier League. That doesn't surprise me. But I think that tells you something, that there's still a bit of passion, I suppose, that the players who are involved in these games, they want to win because they know how much it means to both sets of fans. But
they do. They want to win. They don't want to lose, and I got a feeling about this one next week. I mean, we can kind of, when we saw the fixture list, it seemed to come a little bit early, didn't it? You'd normally then mid-November, the first one's mid-November, thinking, players still finding their feet, whatever. I think, but it adds to kind of intrigue about next week. Both sides are kind of still finding finding their feet a little bit, finding patterns. I like the look of Everton. I think they're, the additions, having Grealish there, and now that kind of little, what was it someone called in the paper the other day, the unholy trinity. You got him and Dewsbury Hall,
and Ndiaye as well,
and then Ndiaye. You got Dibbling still to come on, and so they're, my Everton mates are pleased and excited about, obviously the stature of Grealish. One said, it's not since probably Kanchelskis that, that there's been a player like that, so that's exciting. And so really, let's hope there's goals. Next week, at least I'd rather there was one where I'd rather see a 2-2 than a 0-0. I'd rather see I got a feeling it'll be a draw. But you always have a feeling it'll be a draw, don't you?
I always want to sit on the fence. I hope for a draw on that field to do, because I never think we're going to go there and get a win. And especially David Moyes, I think he knows his limits where he goes, we're going to try and sit back, quiet the crowd, try and hit them on the counter, do damage where we can. But I'm hoping for a draw. I'm hoping for a win, but I'd be very surprised if Everton managed to win it. But it's funny you mentioned the unholy trinity, because a few weeks ago I went away to Wolves, And so like Jack, Dewsbury Hall, and Skillyman and Dyke, they don't wear shin pads. So someone called them the holy shinity, which made me giggle. Like,
It's true though.
Yeah.
It's true. But they seem to have, well, I mean, even compared to Liverpool's team, they seem to have found a way of playing, even if it's off the cuff. They seem to have a little bit quicker than the additions to Liverpool. You've got to say at the moment, anyway. They're still looking a bit ploddy at Liverpool. They're winning games, but I think that's just through experience. But I don't know. I just got a feeling. It depends if Moyes goes for it, isn't it? I mean, he's never won at Anfield either. I don't think he'd even won there at Man United. So
No,
it gets in their head a little bit, doesn't it? It does get in their head when they've never done that. Arteta's the same, when he came to Liverpool. Until you do it, you don't think you can do it, kind of thing. I just hope, and I'm kind of the early start bugs me a little bit. We don't see many 12, 30 games where it's, cut and thrust, and they seem a little bit leggy, don't they? Those games anyway. Liverpool play on Wednesday night.
The rationale from the police is they want the game over and as quick as possible. So they think it's less time for people to go drinking. But what they don't realise is most of the pubs just open 2 hours early anyway now. Because they know they can.
Exactly right. Yeah,
and then people drink quicker, and no breakfast. It doesn't really work out.
It's probably worse, It's probably even giddier than than it would have been.
Yeah. But I have to say though, I mean, like, I've got relatives who are Celtic fans, and I went to uni with someone who's a Newcastle fan. There's not much hatred compared to like Rangers and Celtic, for instance, or Newcastle and Sunderland really hate each other. My dad used to be called the friendly derby. And maybe there's been bits of bother at the odd time, but I've never really seen that much trouble at a Merseyside derby, which I'm glad to say.
No, me. And also, again, it's an age thing, I know, but particularly, because only thinking of the games in the 80s between the clubs. I think those of us that were around to see them and remember them, when they were the two best clubs probably in Europe at the time, they're like, I'm really glad we saw them. I'm really glad, because that was like a high watermark for the, and thinking back, I suppose the pride was genuine, but like the collective pride was genuine, and I can tell you, most Liverpool fans miss it. They miss that. The ones I can remember anyway, because I mean, wouldn't that be great? One of these days, to be facing up, and it's like it's all on the line. The two best teams in the country, the two best teams probably on the continent. I've got a couple of sons, and they're Reds because I'm a Red, and their uncles are Reds. And they're in their 30s, but as far as Everton goes, there's no context. They don't quite get it. They don't quite get why, even how I regard Everton, how I say respect Everton, how we would naturally just, the stature of Everton. My kids go like, I suppose it's to be expected. A few weeks ago, I know when there was published an all-time list, an all-time league table. You may have seen it, a top-flight league table.
Oh, right.
And I saw, yeah. And Everton are in third. And I said, yeah, lads, I showed it to my kids, and they were dumbfounded. You know what I mean? There's Liverpool, Arsenal, and Everton. And I'm saying, look, just remember, you know what I mean? There's anyway, point taken. But
it's good to see that. So, Paul, what would you say your favourite Merseyside derby was?
Hand on heart. I mean, I've seen a few great ones. I've seen us win them. I've seen us lose. I've been at Wembley when I was at Wembley in '89. It's got to be, no word of a lie, that 4-4 in '91. Me and our Joe were at Goodison for that. And pound for pound, that was like all the derbies that we've seen in our lifetime in an hour and a half. Just the way of it, the excitement of it, the noise of it. I'll never forget it. obviously, didn't work out for us. Like Dalglish, I know Dalglish 2 or 3 days later jacked it in.
Yeah.
It was that week. It was brilliant.
Yeah, he
It was
dealt with a
brilliant.
lot after Hillsborough, obviously, and I know,
Yeah.
like, I remember getting told he went and seen a lot of the families and stuff like that. So going through something like that's got to be a big drain on you, and yeah. And
I think he must. I think he used to enjoy. He really used to enjoy playing.
Yeah.
Against Everton. Probably Rush enjoyed it more, but Dalglish, Dalglish was, he relished it, in the best way. That was, and those games, like I say, I'm lucky to be old enough to have seen that era of games. Those lineups, they were like, I don't know. Like, again, you know what they were like? They were like those middleweight boxing contests. You're probably not old enough to have seen them, but around from the same era. Where no one hid from each other, like these in that middleweight division, all these great fighters were around at the same time, and the fights were just legendary. And they were all televised. It was the same. It was like that. The quality was that good. The stakes were that high, and the spirit was the same. I'm just really glad to have seen all them. But that 4-4 takes some beating. Really.
For any younger viewers, you'll be able to find the highlights quite easily on YouTube if you put them in. We can't upload them because we'll get copyrighted, but it's a great game to watch. Even if you just watch the goals, it's pretty amazing. But we've already kind of spoken about it. But what's your predictions for the derby? I think you mentioned 2-2, or that's what you'd like.
No, I'd like to. Well, only that I'd rather see 2-2 than 0-0.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yesterday Liverpool. What was it they were saying? That's 38 games now, league games. They've scored a goal without, the last time was exactly a year to the day. Like, part of me's going, right, you know where it's going to end, don't you? It's Pickford, Everton. It's going to. That's where that's where records founder. That's where it stops. But so that part of me, the pessimist in me, is thinking, yeah, that's 0-0 next week. But the optimist in me. Yeah, who wouldn't want to see like a ding dong proper?
Yeah.
And you know what? It's possible. It is possible. But I think Everton would have to score first, rather than chase the game. Everton would have to go ahead. Prediction: 1-1.
I'm going to say 1-1 as well. I'm going to say 1-1 as well. And I always kind of say 1-1. But after, I spoke to my brother via text because he lives in the Philippines. But speaking to him and one of my mates, he said Liverpool haven't played great this season. They've got it slightly lucky on certain days. And, I think they've won a lot of games late on. I know it's going to be Isaac's possible home debut. So already I can see a hat-trick in the predictions coming. But I think it's always going to be a difficult time, and not just the derby.
But defenses. It's a game for defenses. Everton have got a good defense, and I think they're going to need it. Moyes knows what he's doing, and so really, it's gonna. Yeah, Isaac's there. He might not get on, but it's going to be more. We know it's going to be more about the defense, isn't it? Who's the most solid? Van Dijk and Konate play well, then. It's going to be one of them. But again, you just hope it's open. I wouldn't mind an exciting one. Liverpool haven't played well, but no one's beaten them. No one gets to beat them. They're not losing. You know what I mean? There's just a habit they've got of picking up points. I think you should be glad that Moyes is back, though. I mean, I'm sure most Blues are, aren't they?
I am. Again, I want to come back, and I know a lot of people didn't, but when I had my first ever season ticket under David Moyes' first full season, and to me, I remember Everton being awful and fighting relegation, and he changed that within a couple of years. Like, we weren't fighting relegation, we were competing with the top six. He got us into the top four once, got us into Europe multiple times. His last two seasons at Everton actually finished above Liverpool twice. So
I remember.
Yeah, I mean, the job he done, he should really get a pat on the back, and that's why he got offered the Man United job. And I know some people begrudge him, but I could never begrudge someone taking what would be the biggest job in football at that time. And I don't think he got a fair crack at the whip at Man United. He got two signings. He got Fellaini and Mata. who ended up having good careers, when he was promised all summer he was going to get Fabregas and Gareth Bale. Now imagine if he'd had them, it would have been a different story. But as we've all seen, there's a lot bigger problems at Man United, and I'm really enjoying watching the downfall of them. But yeah, I'm going to go with 1-1 as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean. They're suffering, and they're probably going to have to suffer for a little bit longer. They'll be back, obviously, at one point, but you know, I don't know. We've been there as well. I've seen it. You know what I mean? I can relate. Reds fans can relate to it. You know, we were where they are. So it's cyclical and it'll come back. Everton will come back. It's bound to happen. Moyes is a terrific manager. I think watching him win that. They won the Conference anyway with West Ham. You know, watching him win a European trophy. You know, you realise that. Yeah, with not a fairly ordinary. I mean, it's a Premier League team. But he really got the best out of him. That's what he is. That's what he's good at. Yeah, I think he's great.
Yeah.
I was watching yesterday. I've got to ask you. Watching, I did enjoy yesterday watching Liverpool at Burnley. Watching, I've forgotten his name because I haven't slept. Kyle Walker. Watching Walker playing. No, because a few weeks ago there was rumours, that he might go to Everton, and watching him yesterday playing, probably looked like he was playing in two positions at once for Burnley, but just the kind of canniness of him and the experience of him and the way he played well, and thinking, why didn't he? I mean, if he was in that Everton team, I know it's what if, but if he was in that Everton team, how much more he'd be enjoying himself now in that team rather than probably having to fight fires for 90 minutes playing for Burnley every week. Anyway, it never happened. But
well, fair credit to him for going there, because he could have easily sat on his contract at City and not played, but picked up a lot more money. So it's nice to see players wanting to get on the pitch. But
still a player.
Still a player, yeah. Now, this is a football podcast. However, I have been given permission by Dave to ask a few small questions, Paul, about your career. Now, the first one's going to shock everyone. Yeah, first one's going to shock everyone because they're expecting me to ask about Alien Free or With Nail and I. And the first question I'd like to...
Well, sorry to cut you off right there, you filthy animals, but I do appreciate that this is a football podcast. And I also appreciate that not everyone's into films, but those who are, and those who would like to hear about Paul's illustrious career, and it is some great stories, by the way, not just about With Nail and I, Empire of the Sun, Alien Free, the lot. It's great. We go back into football as well, but to appreciate the ones who just want to watch football, so that's your lot. However, if you would like to see the rest of the interview, you can watch that tomorrow. And, I've always wanted to say the same bad time, same bad channel. But yeah, tune in tomorrow and you'll see it. So yeah, up the fucking toffees, Colin Chong.